My only criticism of us, I think, as we approach these discussions is that a part of that intellectual curiosity that we all must have, we must be able to accept criticism without necessarily being defensive, and that being our immediate posture to it. And one of the things that I saw in the comments, and one of the things that I saw when Joe Budden was making those comments, is we want to be individuals that people come to. It's in our phrase, it's welcome home. That
the Native Land podcast has been getting a lot of blowback from the disrespect that they showed the Joe Budden's podcast almost 2 weeks ago. Now, they was talking real elitist, Jack and Jill, just basically saying, I'm not like those blacks over there. And a lot of people was very upset about that. And they actually showed the very thing that the grassroots black community has been talking about. There's different types of black people within the black community, and those that look down on other groups and think that they're better. They think that they've arrived. They go out of their way to act like they fight for black people, but they really placating to the W folks, saying, I'm not like those people. That's exactly what they do. Now, when the Native Land podcast was disrespecting the Joe Budden's podcast, they was, doing it in reference to Mark Lamont Hill, saying he doesn't belong over there because he's over there with the trash truck, or the trash truck juice of the black community. This is the underbelly class of black people that caters to the garbage and trash. We're not like them. Mark, come on home, brother. Come home over here with us. So when Charlemagne heard this, Charlemagne and Joe Budden's don't get along. And Joe Budden's, when he responded, called them Charlemagnes, right? So Charlemagne, he heard this and said, I got to get out in front of this, right? And he went on to the Native Land podcast to confront Tiffany Cross and Angela Rye, and he got up there and he said this.
I agreed with Joe. I felt like, it came off, very elitist, very Jack and Jill, very, I got my nose up at these Negroes. My biggest issue with it was, well, damn, a person who's an intellectual should look at the whole context of a situation before they have a conversation about it. I feel like, Andrew said one of the strongest points last week when Andrew was like, I don't watch this show enough to have an opinion about it. And then he said, but I trust Mark, being Mark to be in spaces where, he knows he needs to be in. And as I'm listening to the convo, I told Angela that even when she told me that y'all wanted to talk about it, it came up as a topic of discussion. I said, well, make sure you watch the whole thing in context before you just watch a clip of it and then, speak on it for the next 20 or 30 minutes. Because to me, that's what an intellectual should do, right? Like, that's what an intelligent person should do. An intelligent person should get the whole context of something before they comment on it, instead of watching like 2 or 3 minutes of something and then actually taking the clip out of context. Because if you watch the clip in context, Mark was actually wrong. If there's a right or wrong in the situation, Mark was actually the one who was wrong in that situation, so much so that he even came back and apologized, the next week. And the conversation just kind of made me feel a way like, damn, like that's how we look at each other.
So now, after Charlemagne got after them about that, I'm gonna show you how a lot of times these women don't take no accountability for what they got, for what they do. Now, they was talking real elitists, very elitists. And everybody heard it and saw it, and everybody voiced their opinion on it. To the point where Mark Lamont Hill, he apologized on the Joe Budden show because when he was arguing with, I forgot the fat boy name. His name is escaping me right now while I'm talking. It's right on the tip of my tongue. But they got into an argument. Right? And Mark Lamont Hill eventually apologized because he was in the wrong for the argument. They heard that and knew that, but yet and still, Angela Rye fashion, instead of saying, you know what, man, maybe we might have sound kind of elitist, that wasn't our intent, and people thought that we apologized because that's not what we're doing this for. She starts saying, was anybody in here part of Jack and Jill? Is anybody in here part of the Boulay? Is anybody... But this is where a lot of these women are allergic to accountability and just saying I was wrong. Check this out.
And this is a focus group for this podcast. How many of you all were in Jack and Jill? Raise your hands. How many of you all or have any sorority or fraternity affiliation? Raise your hands. How many of you all are in the Links? I quit. I was in the Links. How many of you all are in the Boule? Raise your hands. I'm doing that because Andrew was the most relatable person to them per their own commentary. And Andrew's the only one who was in the Boule. We are not even in the Boule. So we get labeled for stuff that we're not even in. But Tiff,
well, I didn't hear Charlemagne say that.
No, he didn't. He said Jack and Jill of y'all.
Yeah.
If you thought that the hypocrisy was bad, wait till you hear what Miss Cross, how her apology is. You know, the apology that she was trying to issue, she issued an apology and was disrespecting them again, all over again. I forget, the guy's name is Flip, right? Yeah, so this is the thing, man. This is the thing when you're dealing with our community. You know, you have elite blacks, and then you have this educated class that strive to be part of the elites, going out of their way to show W folks that I'm not like the other blacks, right? And they try to act like they're not doing that, but that's exactly what you're doing, right? You could have just said, like, you guys didn't have to mention them at all. If they're not part of what you're doing, why even talk about it? You know, why even, like, you could have called Mark Lamont Hill on the phone. No, you was trying to bring attention over to your channel, and what you did was you brought the negative attention because Ms. Cross is saying that she want to reach the incarcerated, but the majority of the incarcerated watch the Joe Budden podcast. Watch this hypocrisy.
And I will say, I stand by what I said. My perspectives and opinions don't sway in the winds of public opinion. Sometimes the cheese will stand alone. I do think there is very much a toxic landscape that is fueled by a lot of podcast bros. But I definitely agree with you, Charlemagne. Before you have an interview with anybody, before you sit down and speak on something, I would advise anyone to be well informed, whether it's politics, sports, anything like that. And so I don't think that the issue was that the collective was not well informed. I don't think that was my perspective. I think the issue that a lot of people felt is they felt attacked. And so I want to be clear that I wasn't saying who was an intellectual and who was not. My perspective was there is an anti-intellectual movement ravaging the Black community. I also want to be clear that I was not saying that no one should talk to Flip or Joe Budden. Certainly somebody should. Someone should be reaching out to them. That's not my ministry. Things I care about are the incarcerated and puppies. Most importantly, pit bulls. I don't like that tens of thousands of them get euthanized every month. It breaks my heart. I think about the incarcerated all the time. I don't want our Black men and women in prison thinking they're forgotten about. I think it's a bit arrogant of me to say, Angela, Bakari, Andrew, y'all should be talking to the incarcerated. That's not their ministry. But if Angela feels like, no, those are the people, or you, Charlemagne, if you feel like, no, those are the very people I want to be speaking to, then by all means, go do that. I'm saying it's hard to fill a cup that's already full. So if I'm telling you something and you're insulting me for my intelligence, I don't need to be where fools gather. So I stand on what I said. I'm not disrespecting any of them. But I just want to be clear. Our viewers know I never come on this podcast ever without being very well informed and researched and fact-checked. And a fact-check is not a 30-second Google search before I come on this show. It takes a lot of work to prepare for anything I introduce. And I would hope that we all do that.
And see, this is for the proof that there's a percentage of women that don't respect men. Right? She knows why they were being called out and being called to the carpet to the point where they got to speak on it again. Because she said, I stand by what I said. Well, if you stand by what you said, why you feeling the necessary need to speak on this again? Because of the blowback that you guys were getting. But instead of you being a big girl and saying, you know what? I stand by what I said, but I wish maybe I could have worded my things differently. Maybe I need to be more mindful about what I say about people, because let's revisit what Joe Budden's actually said in his comeback to them, right? And then we'll come right back.
My acceptance of her non-invitation becomes relevant, right? Like Angela, right? I can assure you, like, I've got over 25 years in this business. I can assure you, if you and I are in the same place, it's a mistake on my part. Like, I'm all for people saying who's invited and uninvited places, so I ain't mad at it. But we would never be in the same space. You quote unquote intellectuals seem to be pulling a lot from places that, again, like it said, you admittedly know very little about. It just comes off away.
Yeah,
it comes off away.
It's like if you put,
especially when you pretending to especially when you pretending to do all of this super black kumbaya. I got a problem with that too. I got a problem with the people that masquerade as kumbaya, super black, all for the people, and will be the first one to tell you how we're different. I come on here every week and say we're less different than we all like. We just got different ideologies. But I'm not going to keep listening to people who in 25 years, I've never said the name Angela Rye. I don't give a fuck about nothing y'all talking about over there. I'm saying that respectfully.
Now we get to the men. And the one thing Bakari Sellers understand is, as a man, accountability, because if you don't, we pay the price, especially as black men. He got on there and he sounded totally different from these women. Totally different. And he understood the assignment. Because he said, listen, my face was on that thumbnail. And I don't want to be labeled as somebody that thinks that I'm better than a group. We're trying to get people to come home. We're trying to get people to ingratiate themselves into what we're talking about and what we're doing. We're trying to unify the black community. This is what Bakari Sellers was saying. Because he understood the blowback. And he understood the accountability that was necessary from what they did, from what those women said. So Bakari, he said his stance was totally different. I understood it. I heard it when he said it. Y'all don't believe me? Check out what the black man had to say and how he framed and worded this totally from these women. Check it out.
My only criticism of us, I think, as we approach these discussions is that we, a part of that intellectual curiosity that we all must have, we must be able to accept criticism without necessarily being defensive, and that being our immediate posture to it. And one of the things that I saw in the comments, and one of the things that I saw when Joe Budden was making those comments, is we want to be individuals that people come to. It's in our phrase, it's welcome home, that feel as if there is a comfort level to come in to our doors and hear the things we have to say. And whether or not we're talking about it from a respect perspective or intellect perspective, I think that throughout that conversation, it's not that we can't sit out here and be like, I'm sorry you felt that way, because that's like human gaslighting. We have to acknowledge that there were people who felt foreclosed from the conversation because of our tone, tenor, vocabulary. And how do we make sure that these are some of the people that we do want to reach, or at least I want to reach? That may not be everybody's ministry, but I would like to have some of those listeners from Joe that are like, maybe we can come over there too. Maybe there's an hour we can spend there too. And that may never happen, but that's just kind of my perspective on it. And I feel like the only other thing that I felt was like weird, and I know we don't do that and we fixed it, but I was glad that we didn't necessarily stick with using, that Joe Budden in the title. And y'all had my face. It was handsome, but we had like Joe Budden in the title on the YouTube.
I'm going to get to that, B. Don't be trying to scoop me, B.
I told Angela that too. I was like, yo,
no, but I'm just saying,
since y'all brought it up.
But it was my face, and I didn't know, and I just felt like,
I didn't
like, damn, it's Bakari Sellers' face.
Description, because I don't have no clue.
No problem. So we had our thumbnail. What Bakari's talking about is the thumbnail for last week's show said Joe Budden's podcast and the dumbing down of America, and Bakari standing there in the middle getting the haze up. He getting haze up for another 2 months. Down. So he was in the middle of it. And I think that what we did wrong, and I do want to apologize to Joe Budden's podcast, to their team, to their production company for that title. I'm an EP on this show, and so I own that wholeheartedly. We should have titled it differently. Maybe they wouldn't have looked at it, but they got us back. They got the whole podcast taken down for copyright infringement because we actually used their clip. They only took that clip out. It's still under challenge. We reposted it without the clip. But I would just say to them, well played, but I do apologize for titling the podcast.
So Bakari Sellers understood the assignment, right? He said that you have to be able to accept criticism without being defensive. Right? You can't go on there and say, well, I'm sorry you felt that way, then go on and keep saying all the stuff that you were saying to make people feel that way. Right? And this is something that when you listen to the women, they took no accountability or responsibility for what they said. Bakari understood. So Bakari's message was really at them two. Because he was just saying, like, your verbiage was a type of conversation that made certain groups of black people feel like they don't belong. But yet and still, you're saying, come home. You want people to be a part of this, but when you go out and talk, it's very elitist. And this is what Bari is saying. They're sitting there, they're quiet because they know it. Ms. Cross took no accountability for what she said. We all heard what she said. She went on there and did typical things that a lot of women do. More excuses. No, you know what? I apologize for my approach. Maybe I could have did this different. She didn't do that. And that's why Bari is saying that you got to be able to take criticism. If you want to talk and you're going to have a podcast, you got to be able to take the criticism. And understand why you're being criticized and where the people are coming from when they're criticizing you, especially off a topic like this and what you was being criticized for. You just proved Joe Budden's point. And this fake apology, this wasn't no apology. It was actually more disrespect. And why a lot of the grassroots black people don't want to be around this group of black people. Because you want W acceptance. You don't really like black people. Because if you did, you would have recognized your wording. Now, this is the thing. You're entitled to the way that you feel, right? But also you have to also deal with the blowback and the backlash that you may get when you put stuff out there like that. And if you actually love black people, you want to recognize what they're saying and why they're saying, and maybe say, my idea wasn't to push black people away. It was just me giving my views. They didn't even respond like that. They doubled down on what they're saying while at the same time saying that they was apologizing. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this, man. If you made it this far in the video, hit that like button, subscribe to Street Media TV. Leave your comments in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think. Remember, I love y'all. Until next time, peace.